Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Episode number 50 of my AI love affair. It has been a real love affair, and if you can't tell, I'm loving doing this whole show. I'm loving getting into it. I'm loving putting it out. I'm loving distilling some of the concepts that I've put together. And today is a very special one because it's a growth tactic on how to use MidJourney and how to prompt MidJourney to get images that are very unique to you, but also they align with your brand, because I think that's more important. So you can create some really cool images, but if they don't align with their brand, it's kind of destroying your brand a lot. So you really want to be able to create images that will bolster your brand and your brand identity, and it'll stick to your brand guidelines, and it'll make your brand stand out. So how do we create that? How do we prompt MidJourney to do this? It's all coming up in this episode number 50. Also, if you haven't checked out any of the previous episodes, this is the first one you're coming across, go to the back catalog, check out our back catalog on myailoveaffair.com or wherever you get your podcast. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast players. All right, come, let's learn.
Hey, it's Ronsley. Welcome, you AI geek, to this podcast, My AI Love Affair. Consider this podcast your digital compass, guiding you through the labyrinth that is business growth using artificial intelligence. Running a business as a creative can sometimes be like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. But what if you had a secret tool that could align all the colors for you? That is AI. It's like a master key unlocking multiple doors. Thanks for being here. Let's learn.
Okay, so today's topic is all around how to prompt MidJourney to get unique brand images. Well, how to create unique on-brand images is probably the on-brand part being the most important part of that sentence, because you can create images, like I said in the introduction, but if they don't align with your brand, then you're kind of like wasting your time. I think that's what's happening a lot with artificial intelligence right now, is like you're seeing things that are really cool, which they are totally, extremely cool. And they look like amazing magic tricks, and they look like a really cool thing to show someone else, but they're not actually helping you grow your business. The idea here is that our goal is to make sure we elevate our brand identity, we captivate our audience, and we amplify our brand story. Now, when you're creating your brand, if you don't go through a formal designer who will help you highlight your brand guidelines, make sure you stay within the guidelines and your guardrails of making sure your brand stands out and it's repeatable, it builds trust, I suggest everyone do that. If you're not at a stage where your brand can afford something like that, I would suggest going and looking at how to create a brand guideline or brand style guide for your current brand, base it on your brand identity, and then we can start to do some really cool things, because everything then becomes very simple for you to implement, whether it's images, whether it's copy, whether it's different sort of stuff that actually highlights your brand value. All right. I'm going to, like always, I'm going to give you 3 principles followed by mistakes to avoid, and then some steps followed by how to do it with artificial intelligence. So the process is key here. Principle number 1 is specificity. So specificity doesn't mean a longer prompt. It just means that you're being very specific about what you want. It does not mean that you keep writing stuff, because that could confuse the artificial intelligence as to actually what you really want. So being specific in your prompt will allow you to actually attract what you're trying to achieve. So what is the image trying to do, and how does it align with your brand? So the first principle is specificity. The second one is about aligning it with your brand. So align it with your brand identity. And if you don't have an identity, then it becomes hard to align it with your brand. So figure out what your colors, logos, fonts, all those really important things are, so then you can align that with what you're trying to create. Think of your brand as this big musical symphony. These are the notes, these are the ways that you kind of align things when it comes to your business. Every image you generate think of them as notes or in the harmony with your orchestra. So if you have your orchestra, which is the other instruments playing on a different scale, on a different set of notes, then they don't sound great, however good each one of them are separately. The brand alignment allows you to bring it together to create the symphony in line with your vision and what you're trying to create. So, principle number 2 is aligning it with your brand. Principle number 3 is to do iterative testing. So, the first thing to do is test multiple prompts and images. What are you getting as a result of the different words that you're using? It allows you to refine it based on perspective and feedback. So when you put that out there, you'll see what people are saying, you'll see what is aligning, and you'll see how it kind of fits with your brand. Think of it as a chef where they're continuously tasting dish as it comes along to bring it together that actually creates this unique thing. So those are the 3 principles. Now let's talk about the mistakes to avoid. There are 3 mistakes that I'd love you to look at and avoid when you're creating mid-journey prompts. First thing is creating generic prompts. Now this comes from just copying and pasting prompts that someone has given you. That might help you understand what the different words are being used, but they don't really get you images in line with your brand. So do not use generic images. The second thing is to ignore your brand guidelines. It tends to happen with people who have their brand guidelines sorted. It tends to happen with founders because they forget that they've done this and they forget that this work is so important to building trust. What happens if you don't have your brand guidelines is that you put out things in different places and they don't align with your brand promise. And you've made this promise, but you're not sure why people are not taking you up on the promise because of the different things that are involved when it comes to your brand. So when you want to do is you have your brand guidelines in all these different places that allow you to then use them, because the more you stay on brand, the more people start to trust and believe you. And that's what we want. We want to build trust with the brand that we have in our market, with our audience. And the last thing is to overcomplicate prompts. So don't make them too overcomplicated. I kind of touched on that a little bit, so I'm not going to get into too much detail. So don't overcomplicate your prompts, don't create generic ones, and do not ignore your brand guidelines. 3 steps to doing this. The first is the blueprint, the second one is crafting, and the third one is refining. Let's get into each one of them. In the blueprint phase, I want you to identify who your audience is, the target market, and why that they are important, how you're trying to achieve them, why these images are going to grab their attention, and how you're going to create the images for what particular reason, right? That's your first step within the blueprint. Then you're going to review your brand guidelines and make sure that whatever you're trying to create for that audience is in line with the brand that you're trying to make, because that will build trust with that audience. And then you're looking for some benchmarking ideas. So look at similar brands for inspiration. What are they doing? And identify some gaps that you can plug in with the images you're trying to create. So look at what's out there, look at what's being done, and try to then use artificial intelligence at speed to be able to bolster your brand with some really cool images. Step number 2 is crafting the prompts. So in this step, you're going to find out a bunch of keywords and themes that resonate with your brand guidelines and your target audience. What I mean by that is if you're trying to build trust through voice, which is what we do, right? We help businesses with their podcast and grow their business using their podcast, and their voice is very important. A lot of the times we think that we have to be loud for our voice to be heard. So that's a misconception I want to avoid. I want to be able to help people use their voice while they speak their truth, which is really what kind of clients we attract the most, is the ones that speak their truth, want to make an impact, and want to use their brand to kind of then build that impact by transforming their clients and transforming the people that they work with. So that's the first thing. Find your keyword list. What are the keywords that resonate? And when you do a brand identity piece, all these keywords come into play. If you're trying to break the status quo, then those are some of the keywords that you want to include in your prompting. So have those keyword lists. The second bit in the crafting prompts is to draft your initial prompts. And I'll show you some examples towards the end of this session. So you draft your initial prompts and use your keywords to draft those prompts. And then finally, like peer review. When I'm talking about peer review, get a second opinion on what you're creating. So when you're saying, I want to create this image that looks like this and in these colors and it does this and this is what is in the background, this is what's in the foreground, this is what I'm trying to achieve, this is who the target is, then you want to get someone else's opinion because, again, perspective is everything. If you've heard me talk on any of my previous podcasts, I do drum this whole idea of perspective being such an important thing because one shift in perspective can make a work that you spend so much time just shift automatically, and you want that to happen. So that's step 2. Step 3 is then refining that. So deploy, monitor, gather feedback, and iterate. Reiteration is a key here because a lot of us think that we'll do sit-ups for 6 minutes and then we're going to get rock hard abs, but the iteration and the reps is what matters. So making sure that you iterate, but not only iterate, you iterate on intelligence, you iterate on feedback, you iterate on what the market is responding to. So those are your 3 steps. I'm going to give you some prompts so that we can wrap this up. The first prompt that I want you to consider is generate a list of 10 specific MidJourney AI prompts based on my brand guidelines. These are my colors, these are my logos, these are my fonts. This is the feeling that I want my audience to get every time they come across my brand. Those are very good brand guidelines, but even though they're so short, those are guidelines that will help ChatGPT or whichever text-based AI you're using to help you craft these MidJourney prompts will help give it guidelines that will help you do that. That's the first prompt. The second is, what are the key metrics to measure the effectiveness of images generated by MidJourney AI? Like, find out and see what is out there and what works and what is working for other people. And the third one is provide a step-by-step guide on how to align AI-generated images with my brand's visual identity. And my brand's visual identity is XYZ. So give it what your visual identity is, what you're trying to achieve, and ask it for step-by-step guidelines on how to align with the images that you're making with your brand identity. Let me show you some really cool things that I have done with the prompts that I have. And if you are already part of AI Geeks Level 2, then you have access to my MidJourney account. And in my MidJourney account, you can see all the images that I generate for my business. And you can copy them. You can also copy the prompt, and you can copy some of the ways that I get some really cool images. What I want to show you is my AI Geek MidJourney prompt. And I want to show you different things that you can do and how it has worked for us in the past, or how it's worked for me in the past. Okay, the first thing I want to show you is this particular image. And you can see there are 4 images generated, and MidJourney is obviously getting way better with every new version that's released. This particular prompt, and this is a microscope icon and computer board, and I'm saying that I want an aspect ratio of 16:9. This is a standard function, so I wouldn't worry about the S and the C's. I would just worry about how to get something like this. And if you think about what can you put under the microscope, then you can create some really unique images of certain things. So this is of a computer board, which I wanted. Now I want to show you another one here, which is like catch a glimpse of a renowned stencil art portrait featuring a centaur, actually, with a mixer, with a record and headphones set against a stark black background. This minimalistic illustration blends dark synth, high resonance, and McDonald punk themes within lively tableaus, all crafted with a mechanized precision from rubber. So I'm actually trying to get something so different and so unique. So I'm giving it this prompt so that it looks kind of different. See, this is exactly what I was after, something like this, which is kind of cool. So this is another one. I've changed this featuring a Naga with a DJ controller, and it came up with something entirely different. This is with a beautiful fairy. So I'm kind of showing you how these work when it comes to the prompting. Now, if you're in our MidJourney and you're part of level 2, you'll get access to all of this and any of the previous stuff. So have a look at this close-up portrait of a jackal captured by wildlife photographers. If you like a certain type of photography that gets done, then you can even mention that. The art medium should be digital color photography. The setting should be in the African savanna with tall grass and acacia reeds tree. So you see how it's kind of used that close-up portrait and given me these different options. This is the one with a lioness. This is a portrait of a podcaster and by a certain photographer, and how it's captured. Such a great job. So there's different ways that you can do some really cool things inside MidJourney. Now, have a look at this. This is a microscope microphone. I've just tried different things and I put different styles in here and I tried to recreate this particular image. So let me show you the first image that has come in. So this is an image that I didn't expect to get because what I asked for was just a microscope of a microphone and a computer and another microphone and tools. And I'm saying style fusion, create ethereal, use chav and oil and low angle, dramatic lighting in 4K, aspect ratio 16:9 because I wanted it to be a portrait. And I wanted to use version 5.2 of MidJourney. So these are different images and different prompts that you can use, and I hope it gives you a better idea on how to use MidJourney as prompts. If this is the first time you're listening to my AI love affair, thank you for being here. I'm so excited that you're here. Go to aigeeks.co/free, and I've created a free prompt and delegation guide on how you can delegate parts of your business to artificial intelligence. It's going to be, if you're just learning, it's going to be very useful for you. So go get that, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Much love.
Hey, AI Geek. Thanks for listening. Your job doesn't stop here. I want you to lend your voice to the conversation. So you can join those conversations, discussions, new trainings, new recordings, and the rest of the AI Geeks by going to aigeeks.co/discord. Also, share this podcast with a friend, another potential AI Geek. Until then, much love.